eventually people are going to say, what the hell is going on?
No matter how far you go into the dark, when you flip, you go exactly the same place to the light in our galaxy. Everything. Because everything is in balance. Everything is a polarity.
I think it's just going to get weirder and weirder and weirder, and finally it's going to be so weird that people are going to have to talk about how weird it is.
What the hell is going on, everybody? How are we all, guys? Thank you for being here. It's nice to see you. I feel like it's been a little bit longer than normal between, well, the kind of cadence of live streams that we've had recently. It feels like it's been a little bit longer, and I don't like that. I missed you guys. So I'm happy to be here, and we've got, as you can probably tell by the thumbnail, a pretty wild show today. We're going to be delving into the deepest depths of conspiracy theories. Well, I mean, I did just do a video about reptilians, so you know, I'm not quite sure if it tops that, but some would say that what we're about to delve into today, it's all one and the same, that these reptilians maybe even have a part in it. I don't know. Don't take my word for it. We're going to be looking at the people who are telling us those kind of things. So today's show is going to be, well, this is going to be a series, kind of similar to S4. We're going to do at least 2 shows. So we're going to be live again tomorrow night with the next part. We may even go another couple of nights. Tonight, we're going to be looking at Niara Isley. I think that's how you say her name. So she was just on Redacted. And we're going to play a little clip from that. But I went back and I found old interviews from her because you guys know I like the older stuff, right? Just seems to hit a little bit different. So if you saw the episode of Redacted and you saw Niara, who is a secret space program survivor, if you saw her speaking, she's spoken many times in the past. And we're going to be looking specifically at an interview of hers with Kerry Cassidy from Project Camelot. We're also going to be looking at Jason Jorjani because while Niara kind of tells the story from her perspective, Jason Jorjani's theories basically tell the story in far more depth and kind of link it all together. And the stories perfectly line up. In fact, they like corroborate each other really well. So I think it's going to make for an interesting show. And I hope you guys are going to enjoy it too. So please, if this is your thing, if you like listening to, you know, theories about Nazis and secret space programs, hit a like on the video because it helps the channel. And get excited, get comfy, get a coffee, fill up your water bottle if you need to, because we're going to be in for a fun show today. So let's jump over to the Polarity TV. Yes, Suki is here today as well. She's a little bit sleepy, but hopefully she might turn around later. You'll get to see her cute little face. But the first clip is the only clip that I'm going to show you guys from Redacted, okay? Because that show came out yesterday. The full thing is linked below. You can go watch the whole thing after this if you want. So I'm just going to show a little intro bit. Then we're going to hear from Jason, and then we'll kind of get into the older clips as well. So we've got a whole bunch of stuff. Let's get into it.
I'll just say UAP is a term that I think that the government started to use to try to take control of the narrative around UFOs once more, because they really lost control of the narrative. Anyway, so UAP is the new term. Anyway, what made me want to talk again is to talk to talk as much as a patriot of my country, which I took an oath to serve, as an experiencer of secret space program abuse. That's why I wanted to talk again. What I really want is to help people understand, because I did tons of research in my book. It's 530 pages, and it's comprehensive. So if you're looking for light reading, this is not your book. But I just really want people to understand how we arrived at the mess that we're in today, that I hope is.
And before she talks about the mess, I wanted to say this at the start. Let's just preface this show with a couple of things, right? First of all, Grand Maester Dolan, okay? Richard Dolan. We all love Richard Dolan. Grand Maester Dolan said, what if it's all real? And also, Lord Greer says, well, he said in a podcast with Patrick Bet-David, he said that in the 90s, he was told you cannot tell the full truth when you talk about this stuff because it's so out there that it will just discredit you. Okay? I have that clip. I'm not going to bring it up, but maybe we will again in the future. But that is something that Greer has said publicly recently, that the whole truth is so weird that you can't say it because it's just like no one's going to listen to you. So let's just keep those 2 quotes in our head as we go through today's show.
That I hope with all my heart and I feel down in my bones is getting sorted out. It's just really messy because of what we're up against. like the LA riots, these No Kings demonstrations across the country. And I just feel like if people really know the history of how we got to this place, it will give them understanding and maybe some measure of peace, understanding how we got here, and some understanding that we must never allow this to happen to our country again, because we very nearly lost our country. If I exist and I know all this information, then there have to be people out there for whom duty and honor and loyalty to their country still means something. They still hold that in their heart and in their being, just as I do. And they have more resources and more knowledge than I have, and they have to have a plan. Because one of the things that came out when I researched my book was the fact that the globalists have been really organized for a very long time, perhaps going back hundreds of years. I haven't gone back that far. Otherwise, my book would have been in 5 volumes. But I did go back to World War II and post-World War II times.
Okay.
And there was something that happened after World War II where we defeated the Nazis in Germany, at least ostensibly. But we wanted to know what the Nazi scientists who worked in the concentration camps and who worked for their Nazi regime, we wanted to know the science that they knew. So those scientists were brought over to the United States. Some of them were given more American-sounding names, and they were put to work in various branches of our government, as in space and aeronautics. Werner von Braun was put to work in that area. A lot of these people that we brought over and put to work in our government under Project Paperclip right after World War II were still ardent Nazis.
I've said this before on the channel too, like, isn't that just obvious when you think back? Like, you've grown up in Germany, you've worked for Germans, doing German things, becoming a Nazi, working alongside Hitler, building rockets and weapons to use against the West, and then the West win the battle, let's say, perhaps, and you are now transplanted into that country. Let's just say America did win the war. And it was just as simple as, we're either going to remove you or, like, you know, your life, or we're going to bring you and you now work for us. Okay. That's kind of like the ultimatum that this whole Operation Paperclip thing is like posed as, that it's just kind of like, you know, we can use you, right? If that's the way it went down, imagine you're Werner von Braun, you're one of the Nazis who just got overran in the war and has now been pulled into America. You're not just suddenly going to be like, yeah, America, woohoo. Of course you're not. You probably actually maybe deep down would despise them because now you don't live in Germany. Now I don't know, maybe you don't see your family anymore. Like, of course, they're still going to be Nazis. Does that, like, am I off on that one, or are people seeing that the same way as me? Because that kind of seems pretty obvious that these guys are still going to have all of the same belief systems and all of the same allegiances that they've developed through their entire adult life. Some of them, these guys are probably in their 50s.
And I believe they began to subvert our government from within. And with the secrets they brought, with the technology and everything else like that, they used the development of certain technologies as a bait, because they would make a lot of money when released to the public, or, you know, used in government contract work. They would make a lot of money. So a lot of people were seduced into into a relationship with these Nazi scientists with the promise of money, big money. The point I really want to make here, plain and simple, is the real Nazis in our government are the ones that have been taking payoffs, the ones that have been keeping secrets, the ones that have been running programs in concert with the Nazis for human trafficking and experimenting on human beings in our country. And right after the Roswell crash, Truman signed into law something called the National Security Act of 1947. And this act, to me, was way more about creating an impenetrable curtain of secrecy around these secret black projects than it was ever had to do with national security. You know, it meant that if you were harmed in a black project and you gathered your evidence and you went into a court of law and you presented your evidence, they would shut you down and throw your case out of court for reasons of national security.
And that's exactly what we heard when we did the S4 deep dive, that they just classify anything that could be classed as evidence against them. Like, so whenever you try to approach them, take them down, get justice, it's just like, what are you going to do? National security. Oh, you got something to say against me? National security. Like, you just, that act that was signed in 1947 is potentially like, you know, the knife. That's a very extreme statement. I'm not going to say that. But that was potentially a very crucial blow that resulted in the way society is today. That's what I'll say. People are asking about the Pentrich incident. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, but yes, I know about it. Yes, I've spoken to Kaz Clark. She kind of seemed keen to come on the channel and then just stopped replying. So I don't know why that is, but yes, I would love to talk to her and I would love to have her on the channel. Hopefully she replies back to me one day. But I have spoken to her. Yeah, national security is literally just, it's like the like the ultimate card, like that you can't beat. It's like the royal flush, and they just have unlimited of them. Every time you want to put something against them, boom, national security. You're not going to do nothing. New excuse for everything's national security. All right, so we've just heard Niara there tell her perspective on, you know, the Germans and what happened after the war. Let's listen to Jason Jorjani say it, because I think, again, he does a much more thorough detailing of potential events, and he just talks and he strings it together really well. So let's take a listen to one of my personal favorites, Jason Jorjani.
Staatssicherheitsdienst, National Security Agency. It's a Nazi term. It's a Nazi term. It was imported into this country. National Security Act of 1947 established the National Security Agency, the CIA, and basically the entire infrastructure of our deep state.
That's also when we changed the name of the Department of War to the Department of Defense.
Yeah, very cute. So get this.
And we created the CIA.
Yeah. So
that's right, Amy. And we built the SR-71 in the 1950s.
A lot of people talk about Paperclip. We brought thousands of Nazi scientists over here. And people talk only about the physicists for some reason, the rocket scientists, which we'll come to them and the bizarre shit that was going on with them. But there were also psychologists we brought here. We brought biologists here. We brought all kinds of people. The psychologists who developed MK-Ultra eventually, starting with Project Bluebird in the 50s, and became MK-Ultra in the 60s. Bluebird was worse. They were experimenting on children. These were Nazi psychologists who were brought over here to develop these behavioral sciences. They had been doing these things in the concentration camps. So we bring all these thousands of Nazi scientists over here between 1945 and 1947, okay? You know what else is happening at the same time that nobody seems to talk about? You read the Spanish newspapers at the time, and they're saying bizarre shit. That Otto Skorzeny, you know who he was?
Remind me.
So Mussolini, so Italy fell before Germany, right?
Right.
Most of Italy, except for the Salo Republic, which was in the north. And Mussolini was arrested and he was made prisoner on the island of Ponza. The Nazis used psychics, remote viewers, to find Mussolini. They pinpointed him. By the way, the Nazis used to use this to track naval fleets all the time. They would find the positions of destroyers and, you know, American naval ships using remote viewers. Anyway, they used this to find Mussolini Island. He was held on, and they sent this super commando, special forces leader, Otto Skorzeny, guy with a mustache and a real badass fencing skill.
Find a photo of him.
Yeah, a creepy looking guy.
Yeah.
Otto Skorzeny.
Amy Hobbs, this guy saw his own death during US Civil War. Who are you referring to? You're not referring to Jorjani. Who are you referring to with that comment? People are ripping on Danny Jones. He was just on Joe Rogan. I haven't listened to that, by the way, but I do want to listen to it. I feel like it could... I know a lot of people like to shit on him, but I feel like that could be a really good conversation. This was... I think both of Jason's appearances on Danny Jones were like probably some of my most favorite podcasts of all time. That is obviously largely just due to Jason, though, because he's just like a phenomenal speaker. But yeah, I think Danny Jones does some good podcasts sometimes, but there have been a few that maybe could have been better for sure. Someone said that I should get Crazy T said that I should get Jorjani on the show. I would love to eventually. we're not quite there yet, but we'll get there. We'll get there.
They sent him to retrieve Mussolini. So there's these pictures where Mussolini has been freed. He's been extracted by the Nazis, and he's with Skorzeny and Hitler. He's been brought back to Reich headquarters, right? They took care of their boy. They found Mussolini, pulled him out. Yeah, look at some of the ones with a... Yeah,
look at that giant fencing scar.
Yeah, now let me tell you a little bit about this guy. So look, so all these people were prosecuted in Nuremberg, right?
Yep.
Somehow this guy gets loose, and he's in Spain from 1945 to 1947 under Franco. So remember, there was one fascist regime that survived the end of World War II. Italy and Germany fell, but Spain survived. Spain was a fascist regime that survived the end of World War II, and moreover, as the mother country of the Spanish-speaking world, the fascist regime of General Franco was connected to the fascist regime of Argentina. And there was a pipeline between Spain and Argentina in terms of Nazi personnel and assets.
Right.
So this guy shows up, the Spanish newspapers are writing, between 45 and 47, and he's with Franco on the Mediterranean coast of Spain, and they're launching saucer-shaped rockets. So they didn't know what to call these things at that point. They only knew what rockets were. Saucer-shaped rockets toward America. What happens in 1947? Roswell. Where is Roswell? The only military base at that time housing nuclear weapons. The base from which the Enola Gay flew to drop the bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
Right.
Okay? So here's something really disturbing about Roswell.
Corso's descriptions.
Yeah, exactly. Corso's descriptions don't fit anything from an alien craft, man. The guy was in charge as head of foreign technology division of understanding foreign countries' technologies, right?
Right.
Jason's reaction to Danny wanting to bring up Tupac. I remember that, like that's triggering a memory, but I can't remember what it was. But I do remember him just being like, "Mate, what are you talking about?" $2 from Josh Bartlett. Were the Foo Fighters in World War II Nazi tech or? Good question, Josh, and thank you for the $2. If I had to put money on the Foo Fighters being Nazi tech or not, I would say no. I don't think whatever those, luminous balls of light were, I don't think that was Nazi tech. If I had to give you an answer, I would say I think that's maybe something else, something a bit more ancient.
And what did he say was pulled out of the wreckage and then reverse engineered? Velcro. Night vision. What else?
Kevlar.
Kevlar.
Wild tech, right? Velcro, night vision, and Kevlar. Is some advanced aliens.
Come on, man. Aliens coming here from another star system are using Velcro and Kevlar and night vision. That's their state-of-the-art technology.
Nobody talks about this stuff.
There's a reason why nobody talks about it, Danny. There's a reason why nobody...
How did Corso describe this stuff, and where's
There's a reason why nobody talks about it.
it documented for people to read it?
Day after Roswell.
It's in Day After Roswell.
Yeah. And he says Kevlar, night vision. Now, Joseph Farrell wrote a great study of Roswell and other associated incidents in the context of Nazi psychological operations. It's called Saucers, Swastikas, and Psyops. And the stuff that Farrell...
Swastikas, saucers.
And Psyops.
This is one of many Nazi occult UFO books in my Amazon cart at the moment. At one point, I had an Amazon cart that was literally 700 Australian dollars, and it was all just Nazi occult UFO books. I had to put most of them on save for later.
Skorzeny's on the cover of that book, actually. Yeah.
Wow.
And so Farrell is commenting on Corso and what Corso wrote in Day After Roswell. And he's saying, there's no way this is alien. There's no way this is alien. Nazi technology was anywhere between 5 to 10 years in advance of ours. We know that. We know that looking at the history of technological innovation, for example, in computers, the Nazis had very small transistors already in World War II. It took us another 5 to 10 years to develop those. IBM had a German subsidiary called Dehomag. It was the German branch of IBM. The information was so compartmentalized. The German IBM was ahead of American IBM, the parent company, and they had transistors that were much smaller. Right? So you can look across all the different fields of technology and see, for example, the Germans testing night vision goggles in the African desert in 1942. They were 5 to 10 years ahead of us.
Yeah. Annie Jacobson talks about this a lot in her Area 51 book.
Yeah.
And I've asked a lot of people about it, and no one seems to buy into it. But I know you're familiar with it. Basically, the idea is that there was
This is a wild theory.
The evidence is very good.
Mengele surgically altered some children to go in that thing, and
Progeria
it was
children,
remote controlled here.
Progeria children, their heads get all swollen up, and they look old, even though they're neotenous looking, but they look old at the same time. Their heads get all swollen.
Mm-hmm.
That's very creepy. So they're basically alleging that the aliens that came in the Roswell crash were not actually aliens, but were like intentionally mutated children is probably the easiest, simplest way to describe it. Pat Simpson says, why did they lose World War II? That's a bold assumption, Kat.
And there was an EG&G engineer who told Annie this, and she goes, why wouldn't you guys make this public if you found out that this was Russian, Stalin flown or Nazi stuff? Like, it would make them look terrible on the world stage. And he said the reason we didn't let it out is because
we continued the research.
We continued the research.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. So where is this all coming? The point of departure was our conversation about the deep state. And
yes.
If there's an entity, as Greer says, and here I agree with him, that's more powerful than all the governments of the world.
The transnational criminal organization, as Lord Greer would say.
How did it start? Where did it start? It started here. And started here because, now, all right, here gets a little bit mind-boggling again. On the one hand, we've imported these thousands of Nazis, and we're engaging them in, let's just say, highly ethically dubious projects.
Clever with the Eminem quote. Yeah, I see you. I know.
Which requires what? It requires a massive state security and classification apparatus to be put in place, right? Which is unconstitutional, according to our Constitution. Government of the people, by the people, for the people. There was that thing, the Bill of Rights, right? So on the one hand, we're bringing all this technical expertise, and the projects they're working on were things they were doing in concentration camps. So we need classification for that. On the other hand, this saucer crashes, and it looks weird. We don't know what it is. Maybe it's alien. We don't know what. But it's definitely a threat to national security. And moreover, the thing crashed next to our only nuclear base at the time. And it's got maybe some deformed children in it. And it's got all this super advanced technology, but still stuff we can understand that we were already working on. Mm-hmm. So you also need security classification for that.
That's classified.
So here we have the National Security Act of 1947, which effectively creates the deep state, right? Mm-hmm. This deep state was already so autonomous from the civilian government of the United States, including our Defense Department, that when von Braun's team was working on the early rockets, the adaptation of the V-2 into a ballistic missile in the 1950s in Texas, the Pentagon officials found out that the Germans were taking classified information to the border and meeting with Nazi officials coming from Argentina and Chile and Paraguay, meeting them in border towns in Mexico, right on the Texas border, and giving them classified information from inside of our programs. So
that's like insane if true. If true, that's big. Big if true. Just quickly, the cookie with a $5. Thank you, my man. He says, how's everyone's day going? I've got some zombie breath and I'm sparking it for y'all. Of course, P. Shaw is with me. Much love. Shout out to P. Shaw the cat and shout out to Cookie. Thank you, my man. I appreciate the $5.
Confronted the German scientists about this, right? They were going to chastise them, whatever. I don't know. Mm-hmm. What could they do? Right. Revoke their clearances? Well, who's going to build this shit, right? But, they get on their case about it. Guess what the next thing that happens is? Oops, the Germans misdirected their missiles and they landed in Mexico. They shot some ballistic missiles into Mexico. As a way to say to the Pentagon, don't fuck with us. You fuck with us again, we'll start a war with Mexico. So already by the 1950s, they had their hands on the balls of the U.S. government to that extent.
That's crazy, right? Like, if that's true, that is like the government has been subverted since the 50s, and that would make the UFOs over the White House in 1952, I think it was, make a lot of sense. Like, if that's true, and I guess I believe it is, that is that has to be a standover tactic. To do that over the White House, that's not random. That's not it could have been anywhere, it just happened to be the White House. No, that's intentional. Obviously, that's intentional. So what does that move mean? To me, that's don't forget who your daddy is. That's what I think.
This is why you have Eisenhower coming out and making that statement as he leaves office, warning about the military-industrial complex that's gotten out of hand and they're a threat to our democratic society, etc. Because he knew this stuff. And I'm convinced the main reason, now Kennedy made a lot of enemies for a lot of reasons. The Kennedy brothers did, because they were, engaged in prosecuting the mafia. And, there was the whole Cuban angle with the Bay of Pigs fiasco.
Yep.
But I'm convinced that the main reason that JFK was killed is that Eisenhower handed this information off to him.
The UFO stuff.
The whole deep state problem.
Yeah.
And said to him, listen, man, you have to get this under control because these people pose an existential risk to our Constitution and our way of life. And Kennedy was going to shut them down. And even after he was executed, his brother would have pursued the same policy. So they were both taken out. And I've heard RFK on record in interviews say that he believes that his father was killed by a Lockheed contractor, specifically a Lockheed contractor. Now, why would a Lockheed contractor assassinate Robert Kennedy?
I mean, Jason Jorjani, he is just like a machine gun. And I'll just say, I saw a few people saying like, this guy's tripping, he sounds anxious, whatever. I have that clip sped up by like 20%. Okay, so he is speaking quicker in that clip than he actually is. Just because we've got a lot of clips to look at. So I do try to speed things up a little bit because at least my brain is like, come on, let's go. Keep going. I like it quickly. You know what I'm saying? Fiverr from Bleak, and he says, are we going to watch They Live tonight in Discord? And Bleak, actually, yes, we are. I was meant to mention that at the start of the stream. After this, we are all going to be heading to my Discord, and I'm going to be streaming They Live, which is I'm going to say 80s thriller movie. I've never seen it. Shock. I've not seen many movies, but apparently it's kind of relevant to kind of the way things are going right now. So I'm excited. Yes, Andy, that is the movie about the glasses. Yes, it is. And someone mentioned earlier about like the night vision recovered in the Roswell crash. That originally our night vision was red, and in Vietnam people were seeing like entities or something like that. They were seeing weird shit through the red night vision goggles, and then it got changed to being green. I have heard that. I've obviously, can't prove it. I wasn't there, but I have heard that too, and it's interesting, especially considering how much truth seems to be just sprinkled throughout the fiction. And then this They Live movie sounds very, very interesting. So let's move back to Niara now. So like I said, we're going to go to an older interview with Niara, with Kerry Cassidy from Project Camelot. She used to work in partnership with Bill Ryan, who is the guy I've shown many times on the channel, the one who spoke about China catching a cold back in like 2010 and, the war with Iran and Israel, all that kind of stuff. So very interesting couple of people. And this is an interview from probably around 20 years ago.
When you were doing any of this work on the ranges, so to speak, did you ever see a UFO?
Yeah, that's kind of what I was getting to in the beginning, was because I didn't really remember too much. I just kind of was living my life, and it was kind of a crazy young life. When you're young, you do crazy stuff, get married and have, anyway. So about 10 years after I got out of the military, it was like 1993, 94, I was out of the military, I was divorced, I was single again, and I was talking to this friend about the UFOs. And he noticed that when I mentioned my military time, that I kind of skated away from the topic really quickly. And he thought, well, this is really weird. She talks openly about so much stuff. Why does she not tell me anything about her military time? And so he sat me down one afternoon and he says, I want you to tell me about your military time from beginning to end. I said, oh, no problem. Yeah, I went Lackland Air Force Base for boot camp 6 weeks, Keesler Air Force Base for technical training school, and then I was stationed at Nellis Air Force Base and I worked at Tonopah. And it was like, I don't remember anything about working at Tonopah. I can tell you I worked there. I can't remember coworkers. I can't remember the work site. I can't remember anything. No details whatsoever. All I could do was say I worked at Tonopah, and I knew that I worked there for 3.5, possibly 4 months. And with this realization came a wave of nausea, and I just felt really scared. I was like, shit, I don't remember anything, and this is weird because I have a really good working memory. And I was really disturbed, and I think it was either a year or within a year of discovering this 3 months of missing time, at least 3 months, that I ran into Bud Hopkins at the the Whole Life Expo in Las Vegas, Nevada in 1994. And I went to his lecture and listened, and at the end of it I raised my hand and I said, I have this strange dream from childhood, and I have this 3 months of missing time from the military and a few other anomalous, strange experiences. And he said, talk to me afterwards. So I did talk with him afterwards and explain some of these strange anomalies. And he said, would you like me to do a hypnosis session with you this evening? And I said, yes, I would. I really want some answers. And so we did a hypnosis section.
I'm sorry, I'm going to stop you one more time, and I'm sorry for that.
What I'm just curious to hear your guys' thoughts quickly. What do you guys think about hypnotic regression? It's obviously something we hear a lot about when it comes to people who have had experiences. I can't. I mean, it's not something I've researched thoroughly, so this could be a shit take. I'm aware of that, but I feel like I can't think of a case where anyone has had hypnotic regression and felt better. They always seem to be way more traumatized and like now believe, and it might be true, but they now have like these memories that they at least believe in, whether they're true or not, who knows? But they now believe that they remember like, you know, wild stuff, traumatizing stuff. So it's kind of like, what's the point of hypnotic regression? Yeah, I don't know. I'm probably not researched enough, but I feel like I don't. You never hear of a positive outcome. It just seems to deepen people's trauma. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. $5 from Toxic Fart. It says Josh came to kick ass and chew bubblegum, and he's all out of bubblegum. You'll get the reference tonight. Well, sir, I at least get the reference from Duke Nukem because I was a computer game child growing up, so I'd certainly know that one. But I'm assuming it must be from the movie, so I am excited to watch that.
Can you tell me, when were you doing this? When were you realizing, like, I understand that the original experience happened in over 1980s, early 80s.
1980, yeah.
But when were you realizing this? You had this discussion with your friend, and then you saw bus.
I realized it in 1994.
94, and so it was 94 that you also got regressed?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, go ahead.
And so when I got regressed, Bud said, I want you to go to a time that seems significant to you in January of 1980. When you were in the Air Force, and immediately I found myself standing on the deck of the radar van, because radar vans are like the back of a semi, like the trailer, and then it's filled with electronic equipment, and then there's a deck so that you can kind of climb up to it and down with stairs. I was standing on the deck of the radar van. It was night. I was terrified, and there were saucers in the sky. There were like a lot of them. You know, I would say at least 9, maybe more, but my attention was riveted on the one that was closest because I could hear sound coming from it, and I could see it quite well. I mean, there wasn't a lot of detail on it. I was seeing the bottom of it more than the top. It was like a translucent metal skin on the bottom. It had a circular feature in the center. There was a sound coming from it like speakers at a rock concert when no music is coming through and they're just kind of sitting there humming and maybe there's a little crackle.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, let's just hold it there for a second. And that is exactly how Michael Herrera explained the sound of the craft that he saw in Sumatra, and also Jonathan Weygandt. I can't remember when his thing was, but both of them, and we should look at Jonathan Weygandt's story because that's fascinating. It's a really interesting one. We will look at that. But both of those guys have described the craft that they have seen as emitting like the sound of like an amp, a guitar amp that's turned on, but there's no sound, like just some weird like electronic signal noise that you can hear. And there's probably others that I'm not thinking of too. I feel like it's a really common thing. They're just the two that were off the top of my head.
That's a very good description.
Yeah, and I was looking at this thing, and any wonder at seeing such a craft was completely blotted out by just how terrified I was feeling.
Were you with other people?
I was with 2 other people that had been running the radar with me that night, and we were given fatigues to wear with no rank insignia, no name tags. We were forbidden to speak to each other beyond what was necessary to run the test.
Was that customary?
No, not at all. They were really, they had us very tightly under control, and there were guns involved. I found out in a later hypnosis session, some years later when I went back and looked at this again, that I was hauled out of my motel room in the middle of the night at gunpoint. So it's no wonder I was terrified out there. And I only had a secret security clearance, and my question was, you know, because I was familiar with security classifications and the hierarchy of them, and I'm thinking, why on earth am I seeing something that has to be incredibly highly classified, and I only have a secret security clearance, and that in itself terrified me.
Okay, and now when you said there are saucers in the sky, can you describe how many and the size of them, and were they all identical in the way they were shaped and so on?
They all looked very similar. I wouldn't say they were identical, but they all looked very similar, and again, I was terrified, and I was really just looking at the one closest.
Were they all the same size?
That was hard to determine because they were varying distances.
Were they
away.
moving or were they hovering?
They were hovering.
All of them?
They were hovering, and some of them were kind of, you know, tipping a little, but they were hovering, and there was...
Isn't that something that Bob Lazar said as well? didn't Bob Lazar say that like the slower they go or something like that, like the more like, what were those toys as kids? Like those spinning tops that you would spin them. And then like, as they would slow down, they'd start to go like that. That's kind of how it sounds like she's describing it, and also Bob Lazar. And like, it's interesting because you could say, you could say all of these people are just creating their own story based off of the last story they heard. But I don't think that's the case. I think that would actually be like if that is the case, then this is like the most insane psyop of all time that like none of us even stand a chance against, if that is the case, but I don't think it is. $2 from the cookie says, how do I become a weirdo? My man, there should be a join button just below this. Should be a button that says join. If there isn't, in the description, there should be like a support the channel or something like that, and you can become a member there. Thank you, man. And we had 5 gifted as well from Joshua47. My man gifted 5. Cookie, you might have even got a free one from Joshua. Guys, can we see some love for Joshua? And if you received a membership, make sure you say thank you.
It's a little motion. I mean, they're tipping and then maybe a little bit of this, but they were mostly all hovering.
Okay, and they were in miles. I don't know.
Yeah.
Would you say sort of a valley or?
Yeah, they were kind of in the valley. I would say that they were covering an area maybe 10, 12 miles square around the radar.
And just hovering.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And size-wise, each saucer would be approximately. Is there any way for you to?
I'm not really good with those kind of dimensions.
Yeah,
but I
I'm
would
not
guess 30 to 50 feet in diameter. That was just a guess.
Okay, so that's not massive, right?
No.
Okay.
That's pretty like, I mean, she's not sure, but like 30 to 50 feet, again, that lines up with the kind of numbers that we heard from Bob Lazar. I think Bob Lazar is probably the best kind of benchmark to go off with that kind of thing. I believe Bob Lazar. I know some people don't, but I don't know. I guess we all have our reasons on like why we lean into things. To me, I think he's telling the truth. I don't really think he's gained anything other than a nightmarish life by telling his story, which is not a big selling point for me. I don't think I would want to tell a lie just to be called a grifter for 30 years. I'd probably just not do that. And not a bot. Welcome, sir. I hope you are actually not a bot, because we don't need any more of those on the internet. Welcome. Thank you for becoming a weirdo. Can we see some loves for not a bot? And then we're going to jump straight into the next one. So again, we're sort of skipping ahead here, but this is like what you've heard so far is Niara just talking about things that she saw while working for the Air Force. But not long after that, she talks about being taken to the moon, because if we're talking about secret space programs, the fact that we have bases on the moon and bases on Mars is part of that, as wild as that sounds. But, let's not forget the classic Haim Eshed interview in the Jerusalem Post 4 years ago now, or maybe 5 years ago. He literally said that Brigadier General of Israel Defense Force and 30-year head of their space program said that there are bases on the moon and Mars. Okay. And then he never said a word ever again. So, who knows what that means. The breakaway civilization stream that we did, we heard those Navy SEALs in Antarctica talk about jump rooms that would like transport people or materials to these off-world bases like in an instant. And Niara even talks about them. I'm not sure if we have those clips, but Bob Dean talked about the Stargate like portals as well. Like there are lots of people saying this wild stuff. And to me, it's like, why aren't you doing all the podcasts? Why aren't you doing all the podcasts? You're saying some pretty interesting stuff, but like that's apparently that's too far. Like John Blitch is all good to go on News Nation and say that the praying mantis was biting his face off, but like jump rooms, no, you can't sit with us, bro. Nazis, secret space programs, you can't sit with us, man. We're mantids eating faces here. That's where we draw the line. Cookie, welcome. Shout out to P Shaw. Shout out to Cookie. Welcome to the Weirdos Club, my man. Thank you. And $2 from Bleak says she's telling the truth. Her voice says it all. Yeah, I think like with these people, right? This is how I always sort of stay reserved. I believe 100% that Niara believes what she's saying. And that's not saying I don't think it happened. I don't know. I think there is the potential, because let's not forget about like what MK Ultra is, right? It's a mind control. It's a perception manipulation program that I'm sure never ended, right? You know, when you work out how to manipulate people's minds, when you're inclined to do that, and then you figure out that it works, you don't go, yeah, I might stop that now. No, you utilize it because you're a sick Nazi, right? So I'm sure that never stopped. So what I'm getting at there is that these things may have actually happened due to manipulation of their perception in their head. Therefore, it's still a real experience for them. But did it happen in like the 3D reality that we're all sharing? Maybe not. Maybe not. But let's take a listen to Niara talk about that.
There were other things. Probably the most remarkable thing was the memory of being on the moon for a week.
So can you explain how that might have happened?
Yeah. Okay, when I worked at the Tonopah Electronic Warfare Range, I was stationed at Nellis, and then we would be put on a bus and taken up to Tonopah. This is like a regular Greyhound sort of bus. And it's a 4-hour drive up there, and then we would be put up in hotels. The Air Force had contracts with the hotels to put up the Air Force personnel. So we would stay there 1 week, and then we'd be down in Vegas for a week, and then every other week, we would be working up at Tonopah, and then there would be another crew on the other rotation. And so that moon week, I was up at Tonopah, and they took me out of the motel room in the middle of the night and put me on one of the saucers with a couple other guys, and took us there to the moon. And the people at the test site, at the Tonopah range, were told that I got sick and was put on a bus and sent back down to Vegas. And the people at Las Vegas all thought that I was doing my work up at the site, so nobody missed me for the whole week.
Okay. So you went, how did do you recall, the flight in the saucer, let's say?
I recall some of it. It was very hard to really get a sense of time. For some reason, 20 or 30 minutes stays in there. But it was a very strange space to be in, to try to assess how much time was passing.
And can you describe the inside of the saucer at all?
Yeah, it was circular. There was a fairly large beam in the center, and around the center there were some chairs that I assumed were for important people. I was with 2 people, men, and we were told to lay down kind of like cargo on the floor. And so we lay down on the floor, and we were given a suit to wear that was silvery. And when you put it on, you couldn't put it on, you had to strip naked and put it on. It would vacuum itself like onto your body. So it would you put it on and it would just kind of vacuum pack itself onto you.
That's really interesting. That's an interesting point, I think, because that is how, whenever we hear about greys, most of the time, in the Rua Zimbabwe case, especially in the controversial Jonathan Reed case, we see video footage of it. But in the video testimony of the kids in Rua and in the pictures that they drew, these little greys are wearing like wetsuits. Skin tight wetsuits that are black. So it's interesting that she's saying that these things, you have to put them on naked and they vacuum to your body. Sounds a lot like the kind of things that these greys apparently wear. Maybe it's something you wear in a craft. I don't know. Maybe it's got something to do with like the manipulation of gravity on your body.
And there were silver boots and gloves and everything that went with it. And so we put the stuff on, and the craft was landed. It had landing gear, and there was a ladder that we had to climb to go in the underneath part. And then some people came in and sat in the chairs, and I think the pilot, or at least somebody was there, there was like a reptilian on there. And I think the reptilian may have been piloting the craft.
Can you describe him physically?
Yeah. He was really tall, really muscular. He had kind of the yellow eyes with slit pupils. And he was standing behind the beam out of sight, but he moved out from behind the beam and we could see him, and it kind of took my breath away. It was such a frightening thing to look at. And I only saw him for like half a minute, and then he moved back behind the beam.
Okay, was he humanoid? Did he have a tail?
He was humanoid. There was a tail.
Really?
I think there was a tail, yeah. Just,
Okay.
It's such a tough one, isn't it? I'm very open-minded. I really am very open-minded. I'm sure you guys know that. I just made a video about reptilians. But, and no, I am open-minded to this story. But it's just so crazy. It's so crazy that this lady working for the Air Force got taken to the moon on a UFO piloted by a reptilian. Okay. Obviously, that sounds absolutely nuts, right? But the thing is, it's like she's not the only one saying this stuff. So are all these people who don't know each other just like making up this same weird as hell lie? Because I don't think this is like disinformation. Because like remember, these people aren't platformed. These are the rejects. That's probably not the right word. These are the like disclosure misfits that aren't like on all the podcasts. They're not getting put up in Congress. They're not, they're not being shoved in our faces. You have to dig to find these people. So it's not like they're being platformed to put an idea in our heads. They're actually being ignored by the places that would do that. So it's like, okay, you're not. So we can. I think we can probably rule out that this isn't at least disinformation at the, intentionally, right? If we rule that out, what's left? The fact that a whole bunch of people are either are having the same hallucination somehow. Maybe it's MK Ultra. Who knows? Or all these people are kind of like just riding off of each other's random story for no reason. Or it's all real. I mean, the thing is, I think people jump to disinformation when they hear this stuff, right? And Corey Goode is obviously a really good example. And I think when we talk about the secret space program, it's like remiss if we don't talk about Corey Goode and what happened with him. But I think that should be its own episode. And like I said, I will cover that. But we'll get to that. I think because I think this is bigger than just Corey Goode. I think you could say Corey Goode was almost the perfect way to make no one really want to take any of this seriously ever again. I don't know.
It was just
Were there any grays? I mean, you haven't really described any grays in any of this experience.
Yeah. Actually, when the rapes were happening, there was a gray. Was one of the beings, or one of the people watching was a gray.
Okay. Was he in one of the 8 chairs? Or
he was in one of the chairs, yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Was he a short gray or a tall gray?
He was a tall gray.
Okay. Can you describe him at all?
Pretty much a classic gray features. Had a little bit of an aged appearance, I would say, kind of gaunt looking.
Big eyes,
big
small
eyes, definitely big eyes. And because I'm an experiencer of gray abductions in childhood and through adulthood also, I might be sensitive to their telepathy, because when I was going through those experiences, it seemed like I heard him in my head, and he was kind of thinking, why would these people do this to one of their own people? He was like kind of puzzled, because obviously I was in distress, and he thought, this is a human being and these are human beings doing this to her. And I think that he was puzzled by that.
It's interesting, like how she says that she's been a gray experiencer since she's a child. So what does that mean? What does that mean? Does that mean she's been hallucinating since she's a child? Does it mean she is somehow like tapped into having these experiences, like some people seem to be and others don't? And that's maybe why like it carries on into her later life, and that it is all real, but she's just like one of the types of people who can experience it. I mean, yeah, who knows? There's so many different avenues to go with this. But personally, I just think at the very least, I think like some people just write it off because what she's saying is just so sensational. And I just think that's like poor. That's just like lazy thinking. That's just lazy thinking. Now, that's not to say that there aren't people out there who do that. There definitely are. But this lady doesn't come across like that to me at all, personally. Corey Goode, on the other hand, always felt a little bit off to me. There's just something a little bit different about the way he would speak. And then obviously what happened with him happened. But yeah, I think we'll save that discussion for the Corey Good video, because I think there's a lot we can get into there. There was a couple of comments I wanted to read from, but I think I've missed it. Oh, yeah, someone said, "Why would all nations lie about what's on the moon?" I mean, like they lie about everything else. Why the hell would they tell us what they're doing on the moon? Like, why wouldn't they? Of course they're gonna. Why would they tell you or me? We don't matter. We don't matter to what they're doing on the moon. Why are they gonna tell us?
Okay. Well, since we kind of go back into the room with the people, the 8 people, were they male or female?
They seemed all male.
Okay.
All male.
Now, to fast forward to this going to the moon.
Yes.
So you go in the craft. You go to what you. Why did you think it was the moon? Did someone tell you it was the moon?
Yeah, they told us it was the moon. There was one blonde security guard that seemed in charge of my debriefings, which meant more sexual assault and injections and whatever.
What does that mean? I mean, you just kind of put that all together. Suddenly, you have a blonde security guard, meaning a tall blonde?
No, nothing like
Just
a Nordic. Nothing like a
human?
Nordic. No ET. It was a human.
A human?
Yeah,
A blonde
like
human?
a sociopathic human. Because he didn't seem to have any conscience about what he did to me at all.
A guy.
A guy.
Okay. So was he an officer?
No, I don't think he was an officer. I think he was private contractor. I don't think he was regular
Did
military.
he wear a uniform?
Yeah, he wore desert camouflage fatigues.
On the saucer?
No, he didn't go on the saucer. He just brought me to the saucer.
See, like that, what we just heard there, on the saucer? No, he didn't go on the saucer. Like, these are very sort of specific details that she's correcting Kerry on as she's telling the story. Like, those are little things to me that, along with, like, the biggest part, which for me is her tone, her face, her expression, her cadence in her speech, like, the combination of all of those things, to me, create a frequency or like an energy that you can pick up on, and you can tell when someone is being honest or if they may be being not totally honest. You can feel those things, right? And to compound that, the way she corrects Kerry and the way that she, gets the intricate details correct, I just think adds to her case. But again, like I said before, this may be a real event that happened in her head. Like, it could be. That is a reasonable answer to this, right? Because it is crazy what she's saying. But she seems to be telling something that she really believes.
And he smirked at me and said, "I'll see you when you get back, sweetheart. Have fun on the moon." And then just told me to go up the ladder and lay on the floor.
Okay, so the person you laid on the floor with was another person who was being taken to the moon, and that was a guy?
Yeah, there were 2 guys.
2 guys.
Mm-hmm.
Did you know them?
One of them, yes, I did appear to know, but I can't really say his name or
But
anything.
I mean, even now, do you remember who they are?
I remember the one because I recognized him.
Okay.
He was one of the people that worked with me out there.
Okay.
But I can't really go into anything more than that because he could be walking around without his memory back, and I can't. That has to be his choice. If he has any rattles that he needs to explore, that has to be his choice.
Sure.
So I have to leave him out of that.
Okay. So what happened when you went to the moon? Did you see the moon? Did you see the external?
I didn't see much of anything because I was laying on the floor, and I couldn't really see a window. I saw a little bit of a window. I saw space out there with stars, but I didn't really see much until we got to the moon and disembarked.
And then what did you see?
Oddly enough, it's kind of, like a military base. Maybe not as sophisticated as bases on Earth, but the same ugly buildings. I thought, why do they put the same ugly buildings on there as they do on the ground?
So you saw some buildings?
Very utilitarian, yeah.
Okay. Did you see, did you see, for example, saucers don't really need a runway per se, but did you see runway type
Yeah, there
places?
was like big landing areas, I would say that. And we were taken off, and then we were conducted to these buildings, and my memory isn't all that great because I kind of moved forward in the hypnosis to other things. I was worked very hard there. There was a lot more sexual abuse.
What do you mean you were worked hard? In what way were you worked?
It's one of the things I've learned about mind control procedures. If you keep someone exhausted, you don't feed them well, don't allow them, and they're sleep deprived, it helps with what they're trying to do to keep you from remembering too much. So I worked in some electronics equipment, not radar. It was a different kind of electronics, but they thought that my radar skill would translate over to using this other equipment. And it seemed like excavation equipment of some kind, but ultra-modern. And it used electromagnetism to excavate areas.
Mm-hmm.
with big magnetic plates, electromagnetic plates. And so they were actually still building parts of the base.
Talking about building and digging construction, essentially, on the moon. Okay, that's sort of, I guess, what she's referring to. Quickly, Fiverr from the Cookie says, out-of-pocket comment here. I seen a silver orb floating above my house, and I got a picture. Brother, get in. If you're not already, get in our Discord and show us. Post it in our Discord, man. The link is below. Come join. We're going to be watching They Live in there after the stream as well. Everyone's welcome to come. It's open to everybody, but the members, if you link your Discord account to YouTube, you get access to the members only section as well. And that is really starting to take shape. I'm really liking it in there. It's very wholesome, and it's very, very lively. I'm really enjoying the members section at the moment. Josh, your thoughts on the Rh negative blood thing, mate? Simon, honestly, I don't I just don't know. I don't know enough to give a good opinion on it. It would just be conjecture, and all I will say is that it would not surprise me. That sort of stuff, like, it just wouldn't. It, like, when you look at, like, the way things are in the world, and the fact that it's like, the world seems pretty cooked, and it has for a while. The people in charge don't seem to be doing anything about it. In fact, it actually seems to be getting worse. No one's really talking about how we can fix it. It seems kind of like no one really cares. So are we, like, subhuman to them? Like, are we, like, less than them? Is there a reason why they think they're better than us? I don't know. Like, I don't know. But yeah, it would make sense to me, because there's clearly something wrong and, like, nothing's being done about it. DMT trips apparently feel real, so why couldn't this be a similar experience? Yeah, really good point. Andrew Gallimore has been doing a lot of interviews and stuff recently. Super interesting dude about DMT, which, yeah, is a very fascinating substance. I've never done it, but I'm very intrigued by it. Sean says, I was married to a girl with Rh negative. Bro, you might have done a Billy Corgan and slept with a reptile. All right, let's go on to, hang on, here we go. I feel embarrassed to ask, but if there's any kind person or weirdo in the chat who would get me a membership, please. I'm so broke after losing my job. Sorry to ask. Charlie, I appreciate you being vulnerable here in the chat. But when you gift a membership, my man, you don't get to pick who they go to. It's random, unfortunately. So you might get lucky, but it doesn't work like that, unfortunately, my man. But thank you for being here, though. I appreciate the support. Appreciate you wanting to become a member. So let's go back to Jorjani, okay? Oh, Jorjani. Love a bit of Jason Jorjani. This is Jason Jorjani talking about bases on the moon, and also referencing remote viewers who have seen the same kind of thing, right? Let's check it out.
There was this one case of this, I think he was Sergeant. Yeah, Sergeant Carl Wolf, who, although he wasn't fairly high-ranking, I mean, this is how compartmentalized information works in the military. You can be a relatively low-ranking person, but if you have technical expertise in a particular area, you have to be given a high-level security clearance because you need to work on some technical aspect of a very sensitive subject. So in the case of Carl Wolf, he was a photographic technician and repairman. And I think it was 1965, so a few years before we went to the moon, right? We've got the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter going around the moon preparing for the Apollo mission. And Carl Wolf is called in his capacity as a photo technician, photographic repairman. He's called in to what they told him was an NSA facility. And I think he was stationed on Langley Air Force Base at the time. And they say, we need you to come over to this NSA facility and work on this photographic processing machine.
Someone says, I'm Rh negative. It's common here in Scandinavia. Yeah, it's because you're all Nordics.
In 1965, nobody knew what the fuck the NSA was. It was so secret that people didn't even know it existed. So Wolf assumed that it was a NASA facility. He heard NSA as NASA.
Okay.
And it also makes sense in terms of what he saw when he got there, which is that when he walked into this place, first of all, he saw scientists from all around the world, And he could tell because they were of various ethnicities. He saw Japanese people, Indian people, people from multiple countries speaking multiple languages, European languages.
Sure, there's a few Germans in there.
Probably more than a few. And so he's taken into the photo lab, right? And there's another guy in there who's the same rank as him, I think also a sergeant. And before he gets to work on repairing this machine, this sergeant, and the two of them are in there alone, right? This sergeant can't help himself, and he breaks protocol, and he shows Carl Wolf the photographs that have been coming off this machine he was brought in to repair. And they're mosaic photographs where, you know, the orbiter will take a bunch of images, a bunch of shots, and then they'll lay them next to each other and form a mosaic of a larger site that's been targeted for satellite photography, right?
Sean, are you saying your ex-girlfriend was totally crazy but had 160 IQ and was RH negative? Very interesting. I saw comments on the video, right, where we spoke about that, where people were saying they know lots of people who are RH negative seem to have issues giving birth. Like, it's really common for RH negative people to have complications when they give birth. Which is interesting, right? Because I was kind of saying, like, maybe RH negative is the thing that is like, you know, you have hybrid in you. You know, you're something like a hybrid, right? And it's like the hybrids, I'm totally theorizing here. Please don't like believe what I'm saying. This is just a theory. It's like the hybrids are not quite human enough to give birth correctly or have birth safely. And therefore, RH negatives are more prone to birth complications. I don't know, just a theory. Because isn't it true that you don't act like it's not common to know if you're RH negative or not? In fact, I'm pretty sure you only, like, generally only women find out when they are going to give birth. Like, it's like something to do. You only need to know if you're giving birth. This is what I've heard. Oh, here we go. Rambo says, I've delivered numerous babies and haven't seen much difference. It's messy and gross all round. Well, there you go. I'm just a conspiracy theorist. My ex is RH negative and she's kind of nutty. Well, there we go. More evidence for the reptile side. Here in Japan, they strongly believe that personality types and blood types are correlated. Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me at all. I think there's probably something in that. And there's also probably something in your star sign as well. I think there's definitely something to that. Happy Sparrow, welcome to the members club, you little weirdo. Can we get some polarity, love, and hearts? Well, Suki's dancing. Get it, girl. I don't know what she was doing there, but she was so stoked that you became a member, Happy Sparrow. She was having a little dance.
And the sergeant says, we found a city. And he starts showing him these mosaics, putting them next to each other. And they're high-resolution photographs of a megalithic city on the dark side of the moon. Spherical buildings, polygonal buildings, obelisks like the needles in Egypt, and dishes, he said, like that looked like radio telescope dishes. Huge structures, which I guess the resolution of the photographs was so good that he could tell that they weren't made of metal; they were made of some.
She's dancing again. She's so happy you joined, Happy Sparrow. She is the most like active sleeping dog I've ever met. Constantly makes weird noises and just like jumps and fidgets.
Something like a poured stone, kind of like concrete, which is interesting because a lot of ancient sites on Earth are made from that type of material, right? These enigmatic megalithic structures on Earth seem to have a similar construction as what Carl Wolf, at least what was presented to him as a city on the dark side of the moon. And so he's looking at this thing, and somebody walked in, and so the sergeant cuts off his illegally volunteering this classified information to Wolf, and he goes to work repairing the photography machine. But anyway, he said he went home and he expected that either that night or like sometime in the next week or sometime in the next year, we would hear about this city that had been photographed on the dark side of the moon. And of course, it was never revealed, right?
That's crazy. That guy really thought. He saw all these photos that were taken by the lunar orbiter of the dark side of the moon, of these structures and cities. This is before we allegedly went to the moon. This is in like, what was it? The 60s, mid 60s. And he thought he was going to see that story on the news. Brother, come on. Bro didn't know who he worked for. I miss Suki sleep running. I'm sure she'll do it again. Yeah, look, she's getting a little bit wiggly.
So this was one of the most striking early testimonies that I heard from out of Greer's Disclosure Project that got me really interested in the moon. And what's really creepy is
that was 60 what?
65.
65.
A few years before Apollo. And what's really disturbing is that this disclosure wave that we're in the midst of right now began in 2017, right, with that New York Times piece.
Right.
So around about 2018, there are serious discussions about subpoenaing people to get testimony from them. And then later than that, Grush now, spearheaded this initiative to have people come and testify in front of Congress and release individuals from their security oaths, right? Well, guess when poor Carl Wolf met with an untimely end? 2018, 1 year after disclosure starts, his bike was run over by a truck.
What a coincidence. What a coincidence. This guy survived his entire life right up until there was talk about people being subpoenaed to testify under oath at Congress, in front of Congress about what they know. And poor old Carl Wolf gets hit by a truck. What a coincidence.
How old was he?
Young, I mean, relatively.
Can you find the story of Carl Wolf?
He might have been in his 50s or something.
Wow.
And this is what happened to John Mack too. This is how they murdered John Mack. They had him run over on the road.
Yeah, but isn't it? Yeah,
Princess Diana. Yep. I think so.
Understand that that's sketchy about John Mack, but do you think it's probable that he was whacked? And it wasn't just an accident?
100%. No,
Really?
Yeah, I do think so.
Whoa.
So I think it's awfully convenient that just when people are going to be subpoenaed to testify under oath and released from their security clearances, this guy has an accident. Okay.
Of course it is.
So let's go further down this path to the moon. So they had these photographs, right? Those photographs went somewhere. I mean, there was a whole room full of international scientists that Carl Wolf ran into on his way to repair that machine. So these photographs.
Oh, Tommy, my man. Thank you for the 5 gifted memberships. Is everyone just like chucking in a $5 to try and get Charlie a membership? Everyone's just rolling the dice and see if we can land on Charlie with a membership. Thank you, my man. I appreciate the support. That's massive. And guys, can we see some love for Tommy and all of our new members? And guys, if you did receive one of those memberships, please make sure you say thank you.
Photographs went somewhere. Well, guess what? These photographs show up again later in the history of military intelligence. In the 1970s, when Ingo Swann started to work for the Stanford Research Institute on contract for the CIA, some guy who identified himself as Lambert Dolphin, which is probably a pseudonym or code name, this Lambert Dolphin basically he pulled Ingo Swann from out of the unit that he was working with. This unit that was basically a CIA unit, right?
Yep.
So this Lambert Dolphin, whoever he was, and Swann was never able to figure out what outfit in the U.S. government this guy was really working for. He had the authority to take a CIA asset out of the CIA remote viewing program and put him on another task. And Swann was blindfolded. He was flown in a helicopter to a classified facility. It was one of these deep underground facilities. And he recounts having gone down in an elevator, like Lord knows how deep. This is in Swann's book, Penetration. So Swann says he goes down there and they want his, talent as a remote viewer, and they start targeting him, on these photographs that are inside envelopes. And he basically starts describing the moon. But he's standing in the middle of a nexus of roads inside a city on the moon. And he describes these gargantuan buildings, huge, titanic scale of construction. He sees the same obelisks that Carl Wolf describes, like the needles in ancient Egypt. And he said, by the way, I got the impression that those were purely ceremonial. They didn't have any particular function. But he saw...
By the way, the obelisks that he is describing there, where he references Egypt, these are the same obelisks that exist out the front of the Capitol building, exist out the front of the Vatican, right? These obelisks that are like, you know what I mean? They're everywhere. And this is Ingo Swann telling this story. This is Ingo Swann who, yes, it's remote viewing. Yes, it's not hard evidence. But you know, apparently the CIA took these guys very seriously, and Ingo Swann specifically was known for his detail. He was super detailed. And oh my God, we are just getting rained on with memberships at the moment. Charlie, if you don't have a membership by now, you are full of bad luck. We have I'm gifted membership from Rambro. Thank you, brother. Appreciate that. Tyler D, a new member. Welcome to the Weirdos Club, Tyler. Can we see? We need lots of loves right now, guys. Mish with 5. Thank you, Mish. I appreciate your support. You're always in here. And my man Andy with 10 gifted memberships. Wow. Guys, a lot of new members have just come in. Welcome. You have access to members-only videos now for a month. And you also have access to the members section of our Discord if you connect your YouTube account to your Discord. So you can come and hang out with all the other weirdos and you can just be your weird little self. And it's all okay. In fact, it's encouraged. So welcome, guys. Thank you all for being here. And thank you for all the support, guys. The gifted memberships are crazy. Thank you so much.
Buildings that looked like reactor domes, like as if they were, nuclear power plants or something like that, and receiving dishes and antennas and so forth. So he describes this Titanic city, and it stands to reason that whatever was in those envelopes were probably the photographs that were taken by the orbiter back in '65 before Apollo, the photographs that Carl Wolf had reported seeing while he was repairing that machine.
Wow.
So now you have a second point of confirmation. Now here's the really creepy thing, Danny. What else Ingo Swann saw on the dark side of the moon were masses of people huddled in ramshackle shelters. People who were naked and who were being used as slave labor. This is what he said. He said that. And now the fact that they were naked and apparently breathing while working inside craters on the moon, who knows, maybe mining helium-3 or whatever, suggests that there was some kind of an artificial atmosphere, that maybe where they were working was underneath a transparent dome that wasn't, visible to Swann.
Sure.
But in any case, that's not the important point. The important point, and the disturbing one, is that he saw slave labor on the moon, and the people who were directing it were these tall Nordic-looking fellows, one of whom could see Swann. And this has been reported by other remote viewers, where sometimes when they're sent to a target, whether it's a contemporaneous target or whether it's some event in the past, they're witnessed by whoever's there, as if like they're a ghost, and those people are seeing a ghost.
Yeah.
Well, this Nordic on the dark side of the moon saw Swann, and he got the distinct impression like the guy was telling him telepathically, why the fuck are you here? You don't belong here.
Right.
Get out of here.
Interesting.
Okay?
Wild, right? And again, that's not the first time we've heard cases like that with remote viewers. I think the other time was when those same group of remote viewers, I don't know if we have like the testimony from Ingo Swann, but like Joe McMoneagle and Pat Price, when remote viewing the 4 mountains around the world that allegedly had some kind of alien base inside them, said that they felt like their presence was sensed by these beings, which is interesting. Hearing the same kind of thing. Slave labor on the moon, which I didn't really play much of that part from, I keep forgetting her name, which is terrible, from Niara. But she talked about that. She talked about slave labor on the moon. So it's interesting, right? Hearing these totally sensational and out there claims from people like Niara be kind of backed up by someone like Jason Jorjani, who is like, yes, they're his theories, but he's very thoroughly researched. And, something I often go to is the fact that like someone like Jason Jorjani is providing an answer. He's providing like a potential string of like X happened, then Y, which led to Z. And then that happened, and that resulted in where we are today. Like, who else is giving us answers like that actually take us from World War II to why the hell the world is so cooked right now and no one seems to care? Like, no one really has an answer for that. It's just like, oh yeah, go look, Lady Gaga, woo, football, yeah, Love Island, go watch, get distracted. Like, no, how about we actually fix this kind of cooked place that we live? I don't know, maybe just an idea. Probably not though. Andy, celebrating his 5 months as a member. I appreciate you being here for that long, man. He says, doing something positive and showing the love with my tax return. Thank you, and thank you for the reminder that I need to get mine done as well. Thanks, man. And a $8 super chat from Hubert McMillan says, thanks, guys. Hubert, thank you for the support, man. And yeah, thank you to all we got so many new weirdos here now. How good, guys. Welcome to the family. Anything goes here, as long as you're being kind, but anything goes here. So, like I said, this whole secret space program is going to be something we're going to be diving into over the next couple of days. I'm going to play you a little clip of the person that we're going to be really deep diving on tomorrow. You may have heard of him before. You might have seen some of his clips on TikTok or some other kind of reels. Again, like everybody is with the secret space program survivors or people who speak about it, there are question marks. There are question marks because a lot of these people seem to be suffering trauma. They seem to be suffering clear signs of trauma. And then it's, you know, it's like what I said with the Juliet Bryant, the Epstein survivor who said she saw Epstein grow big black eyes as when he orgasmed, right? It's like, okay, do I just like say you must be on drugs or you're just crazy, you're just trying to sell a book because what you're saying is just crazy? Or maybe you are saying crazy shit because you went through some crazy shit. Or, you know, or in the case of like the secret space program, which we're saying was, you know, kind of designed by the Nazis, which kind of turned into the deep state, who were also studying MK Ultra, which is like a mind control program. So maybe they were messing with people's heads as well. Like, who knows? Who knows? But anyway, I'll show you this clip. Now, this clip, I will say, you know, it's actually a little bit spicy. If this next clip offends you, I'll just say I think you just need to take a little bit of a deep breath and relax, because this isn't a personal dig at anyone. But just listen closely to what he's saying and just consider it. And we'll probably dive deeper into this tomorrow.
The Jewish race, I mean, but it's so difficult because the Jews that we know of now only go back a few thousand years. This particular line, this Jewish line, goes back 50,000 years, Atlantean time. They weren't called Jews then.
Of course.
Yeah. So whatever this line has a high reptilian DNA in it. Okay. The Aryan line. There's been for hundreds of thousands of years. These two have fought. These two
opposing.
Yes, have fought because this one particular reptilian line wants the DNA from the Aryan line, and I'm not saying that the Aryans are all good. They're plenty bad and have done plenty of atrocious things throughout time, but this reptilian line is looking for specific DNA to take from them so that they can maintain at least a half decent human looking form in 3D.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So that line had Lemuria, and the Aryans had Atlantis, and Thoth or Toth ruled for 50,000 years pre the cataclysm that happened 13,000 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
The elite, and a lot the high level Masons know a lot of this information. They know this information, and they got very upset with me speaking about it the last time I did. They got very upset with me about that.
So that is Max Spears. He is again, secret space program survivor, alleged super soldier. Okay. And I say that because that's kind of the term that they go by. That's kind of apparently what he was a part of, some kind of experiments to make people kind of go beyond human and do wild shit. And I've already seen people in the comments saying, "Oh, this guy's off his meds. He's just cooked." I'm sorry, but like that's just lazy. Like you're either just ignorant or you're lazy. And then I'm not saying that that's not an option. He might be, but like to just dismiss it out of hand like that, given like everything that's kind of, you know, given everything else that we know, to just dismiss it out of hand as like this guy's off his meds. It's like, come on, bro. Come on, bro. Open your mind a little bit. I know it's hard. I'm not saying believe it. Definitely not saying believe it. But what else makes sense? What else makes sense to where we are today and how we got here? Not much. Not much. And I did say that, you know, I think maybe maybe some people could get triggered from that one, because it does seem because he obviously mentioned Jews at the start, right? And you know, I don't think actually, you know, he didn't really say anything like derogatory, but I do feel like some people seem to like just lose their pants when people talk about Jews in any capacity. I mean, to me, Jews are no different to like Chinese, Americans, Russians. Like, it doesn't matter. Like Muslims, Christians, like we're all equal, right? We can all talk. We should all be able to talk about each other. Doesn't really matter where you're from, right? But he's saying that a particular, and again, I'm not saying this is true. I'm just repeating what Max Spears said. He's saying that a particular bloodline, perhaps, of Jew has like some kind of connection to reptilians, and that this Nordic looking race is connected to like another part of the world, and that they have been warring for like thousands of years, which is absolutely crazy, right? It's a crazy thing to say. But remember, what did Stephen Greer say? He said that if you ever spoke about the whole truth, it's so batshit crazy that no one would even listen to you. And Richard Dolan says, what if it's all real? You know, I actually had a pretty interesting chat with someone last night where we were talking about, you know, reality and belief. And, you know, how does like, when you think of the placebo effect, right? Like, what is that? Like, what is that placebo effect? It's like you believe something is going to happen and it does. And, you know, I might say like, you know, I would say I'm probably more of like a spiritual person, and that sort of framework and belief system works for me. But like, if I was to explain it to say a Muslim, they would be like, no, that doesn't work for me. I have my own framework. But like, ultimately, we're both connecting to the same thing. We're both kind of getting the same return, but we just have different frameworks. Well, I believe in mine and it works for me. It doesn't work for them because they don't believe it. So what is belief? Like, does it not matter what the framework is as long as you just believe it? Then it works, because that's placebo, right? So is belief like you know, we think about frameworks and belief systems and like, what's the right one? What's the right religion? It's like, whichever one you actually believe in, that will be the right one. It's like belief is actually the key factor. Belief comes first. You don't pick the right religion and then believe in it. You just believe and then it works. I don't know. That's something that we were kind of riffing with last night, and it makes a lot of sense to me. And we went a little bit deeper on that. Maybe we can talk about that another time. But I think the art of belief and whatever belief is actually like the key to a lot of things, is just believing in it. Belief is love. Gazebo picnics. What? I'm starting to believe in the whole reptilian thing. My man, Simon, welcome to the bottom of the rabbit hole, my man. It's kind of lonely down here. I'm glad you joined me. Knowing is believing. Knowing versus believing. Mish celebrating 2 months. because I've tripled my shares. Good luck, Charlie. Thanks to you all. Josh, thank you for the support. Mish, you're always in here, and I appreciate that. Contra says, I believe groceries cost too much. Well, maybe that's why they do. That's why they cost so much, because you believe it, bro. I'm going to start manifesting that pineapples come down to under $10 so I can enjoy my sweet spiky treat once again. And I'm also going to start manifesting that Charlie receives a membership from somebody because he deserves it. And thank you for the 5 gifted, Mish. Very, very generous. Again, can we see some love and hearts for all of our new weirdos? And a thank you to Mish for the support. Guys, like I said, we are going to head over to my Discord and we're going to watch They Live. I've never seen it before, but it's about glasses that allow you to see reality and people for what and who they actually are. And I don't think it's human. So if you're not in the Discord yet, go and join. The link is below. It's free. It's open to everyone. Members have their own section. But if not, I'll just see you next time. Be good, be kind, touch grass. And remember, the SR-71 was built in the 1950s. I'll see you in Discord.
Eventually people are going to say, what the hell is going on?
No matter how far you go into the dark, when you flip, you go exactly the same place to the light in our galaxy. Everything. Because everything is in balance. Everything is a polarity.
I think it's just going to get weirder and weirder and weirder, and finally it's going to be so weird that people are going to have to talk about how weird it is.